been a little while since I've had Lee's. It always seems like forever. Of course, it's not that long, but it seems like it. Because I love their chicken so much. Okay, let's just put that in there like that. Okay. Get some of that mess out of there. Okay, so I'm going to open this up here. There we go. Okay, let's see what we got. It always smells like heaven. Wow. Okay. Drumstick. Another piece there. French fries. Biscuit. Get the gravy out first. Get these fries out there. More chicken. Got my biscuit. More gravy. I got a second gravy. I've never got a second gravy before. I'm gonna leave some of these fries in here for now. You know what? Forget it. I'll put them all out here. Here, they're all there. What I will do is I'll put that box there. I'll put everything in there. Okay, now I need a sip. Okay, let's open up some of this gravy goodness here. Okay. That gravy is so good I could drink that stuff. Okay. So, January 1993, my ex-wife has an invitation from a gal pal to go to an introductory scuba diving evening that they're having. Now, the local dive club of the city I live in Nanaimo, which is this one right here. That's where the shirt came from years ago. They were trying to grow their club, and they're trying to recruit new members. So they had this introductory evening to get people interested and to see if they want to take the diving course, the actual diving instruction. It was a P.A.D.I course, P.A.D.I, Professional Association of Divers Instructors, Professional Association of Diving Instructors. I'll be okay in a minute once I start eating something. So anyways, the P.A.D.I course, world renowned, the largest in the world, I believe, started back in the 60s. Anyway, that's a scuba diver is familiar with P.A.D.I. Even if they took another instruction, I'm sure they've heard of P.A.D.I. So Ken was the local dive shop owner. He had his dive shop right down on the water, along with the shipyards and right beside the boat launch. Perfect place, perfect. A few waterfront pubs down there, perfect. So it was good for his business as well to have this introductory course. It was at the local indoor swimming pool at the sports complex. So anyway, my ex and her gal pal go down there. And it was something my ex always wanted to try, and I always thought it'd be interesting myself, because, you know, we both said, you know, when you see these, you know, like Jacques Cousteau and all these underwater movies of people, you know, swimming with sharks. Not that I want to swim with sharks, but they're just underwater scuba diving. It always looks so interesting, like reef diving and all that. And it's something we always wanted to do, both of us. That's a scrawny little drumstick. These will make up for it. So she went to this introductory evening, came back, got back around 9:30, 10 at night. Just gushed about how wonderful it was, how much fun it was, and they got to put on this scuba gear and swim around the pool just in a couple feet of water, you know. But just it was so cool to be underwater for all And just said how cool it was just to be able to, just to breathe into your regulator. And it was just amazing to be able to do that. So she was just going on about it. I thought that sounds like fun. So her and her gal pal decided they wanted to take the course. So the first course started in a couple of weeks. So she said, no, it'd be good for you and I to do it. And I said, I totally agree. It's something I really want to do. I mean, we didn't really do a lot together. I mean, we had our kids, we had our house. She had all her arts and crafts hobbies, like her creative memory photo albums, and I did my thing and had my recording studio, whatever. But we didn't really do a lot together, and we both agreed that'd be something pretty fun to do. So, because we needed babysitters and all that, we had 3 kids at that time, we agreed she should take the course first, and then I would take the course. So she took it. I think there's a few hours over 2 or 3 days in the swimming pool. And then you have your open water in the ocean where there's like 4 dives to be certified. And you'll be certified for 60 feet, providing you pass everything. There's some, written quizzes and tests and whatever, and that sort of thing. A lot of things you have to do in the water. There's certain skills you need to learn. So everything goes well. Gets her certificate. She's now certified for 60 feet. That's totally cool. Look at that. So she's goes on a few dives. Now I started meeting people from the dive club, a great bunch of people. Ken, the instructor, really nice, the guy who owned the dive shop. Another guy named John, and a few other people, I can't remember the names. It's been years. All really good people. A lot of fun, very knowledgeable. Nice to be around. So she goes on a few dives. Her only complaint was the rental gear. If you've ever gone skiing or done anything where you have to rent, it's the gear can sometimes be a bit used and a little bit shoddy, maybe. It doesn't fit properly and that sort of thing. And she found that with the a lot of the equipment. She especially wanted to get her own wetsuit. A wetsuit is generally made of neoprene. I think it's like a synthetic rubber of some sort, but she found the other ones didn't quite fit right, either too big or, she wasn't a big woman, so they're mostly kind of too big on her. So she wanted one for herself, among the rest of the gear. So the first thing she bought was a wetsuit, pink and gray, looked really good. So that's nice. So I'm thinking I gotta get into this course. So in the meantime, there is an event coming up in Victoria, which is south of where I live. It's Victoria's the capital city, and there's a place called Telegraph Cove, I think it was. And every year at Easter, they would host an Easter egg hunt. So she wanted to join that. A lot of the people from Nanaimo were going down to support their fellow dive club, so that was cool. So we had our van, and my ex came along, and we brought the kids with us, and we took down 1 or 2 other divers and a lot of their equipment. And we had a big Ford van, right? So went down there, and the dive club takes a bunch of rocks, a whole bunch of rocks, and just chucks them in the water, just offshore. I think you're only in maybe 25 or 30 feet, not very deep. And they're all painted white with numbers on them. Or I think some of them are colored too, something like that. But anyways, and it starts at a certain time, and you got 1 hour. Now most scuba tanks are good for 30 or 60 minutes, you know, in that depth of water. The deeper you go, the more you use up, more oxygen you use up. But at that level, you could probably do an hour quite easily. But they had to put a time limit on it. So she goes in there with her gal pal and a few people from the Naval Club. And it didn't seem like they were there for very long. They all started coming out, and some got rocks or little mountains, some don't. So when the event is officially declared over, each rock has a number. They call the numbers. I can't remember what first prize was. I think it was a really, really cool diving package where you got to go on a nice dive site for a couple of days, all expenses paid, and you stayed in a nice resort, whatever. Second one, I think, I'm not even sure what the second one was, but she got third prize, and she got a brand new regulator from a company called U.S. Diver. And it was nice and small and shiny and sleek, beautiful. Like I said, the equipment that she was renting, the regulator, she told me it was hard to breathe. She said it was like trying to breathe through a straw. You could never really get a decent breath. You just go, you know, and she said it was really hard. So she was happy to get a new regulator because everyone said, you know, it'll make the world a difference. And sure enough, the first dive she went on after that, she said, what a difference. Like she could just breathe so easily. So she was having fun. I have to admit, I was getting a little bit jealous because I wanted to get in there. I wanted to take this course that I could get in there because I could tell she was having fun. It must have been a blast, you know. Try some of this biscuit. So, spring was coming. Kind of came and went. She was doing a few dives here and there, honing her skills. And the dive club didn't just do a lot of dives, they had a lot of social events too, you know, get-togethers and barbecues and stuff like that. So we're getting to know everybody. So, she had her, she got a suit, wetsuit, had a new regulator, and she eventually would get all the equipment, which would be a BC, or BCD, which is a buoyancy control device. And you put that on like a kind of like a backpack. You put it on, you know, fasten it up, and your tank straps to the back of it. And then you have your regulator that you breathe into, and you also have another hose that is connected to your BCD. And you can press a little button, and that inflates a little bladder in your BC, which causes you to float up, or if you let the air out, it goes down. So that's how you control your buoyancy. You know, some people call the BCD a buoyancy compensator device or a buoyancy control device. So anyways, so that's how you can hover in the water like a fish. Now you also have a weight belt, because you need a weight belt to bring you, to lower you down. Otherwise, it'll be hard to lower yourself, because even with all the equipment, you still kind of just sort of float around, so you need to be able to go down or come up. And with the weight belt, when you let the air out, you start to go down quite easily. So she needed to get a weight belt. She had the gloves, the suit, the boot, and the suit. There's a hood that goes up over like this, tightens around like that. She still needed a BCD, and she had, still didn't have any fins. So her birthday was in the spring, so I bought her some fins. Very happy with them. I was itching to take the course. Well, as luck would have it, we have an outdoor pool and there's an indoor pool. Now, they only use the outdoor pool in the summer months. It was still too cold for that. There was another pool in the process of being built, but it just started. It was another sports complex close to high school that was just being built. It would eventually turn to be spectacular, but it wasn't built yet. So the pool they were doing their diving in, doing their course, was going to shut down for maintenance, or like refurbishing or something like that. They had some work to do because it was a little bit older, so they're going to shut it down for a while. I guess for maybe 6 weeks or something, which would have taken us into the summer. Well, we had already booked a road trip to Saskatchewan for my ex and myself, and our 3 kids, and my sister and 2 kids came along. I made a video about that called Beaver Fever quite a few years ago now. But anyways, it was quite the trip. We finally referred to it as the trip from hell. So we're getting ready to do that trip. So we always do a lot of camping in the summer, so the pool would definitely be open, probably in the midsummer, late summer, but there was another course in the fall, in October. And so I signed up for that, and I was going to take it in the fall. So I was running the idea by my buddy John. I was telling him I was taking this course. He goes, that sounds like fun, buddy. He said, I've always wanted to do that. It's funny how a lot of people say that, always wanted to do that. And I said, you and I should take the course together. My ex took it with her friend, having a great time. He said, okay. He said, I'm in. So we both signed up for the course. Getting ready to take it in October. So October comes along, we go to the pool, and there's quite a few students there. One of the first things you have to do is demonstrate that you can tread water for 30 minutes. I thought, oh man, tread water for 30 minutes. You know what, it was nothing, it was a piece of cake. You get in there and you just get talking. We were trying to talk back and forth, or talk to the next person over there, and just talking over there like that, how you doing, buddy? Hey, what's going on? It went by in no time, really no effort at all. The only thing about the pool I found really difficult sometimes was it got really hot in there, like, not the water's up when you get out, you're standing there, it's like really steamy and hot, and it's just, oh man. Yeah, I would go in the bathroom, splash water on my face sometimes, it just felt so good. So anyways, we had about 2 or 3 nights in the pool, about 3 nights I think. And we put on the scuba gear, and you learn all about each piece of gear, that kind of thing, and how it works. And so you get into the water, and you're swimming around just a few feet, and you get to go down just a little bit, and then you have to kneel on the bottom. You have to adjust your buoyancy control. You got your weight belt on. You kneel on the bottom, and one thing you have to do is remove your mask and put it back on, and then clear it. So you take your mask off, the sun, you can't see anything. I mean, you can see light, but it's just all opaque, right? Put your mask, and then what you do is you put it back on. Of course, it's full of water. So then you just push on the top of your mask, tip your head back, and you breathe out through your nose. Completely clears your mask. I just thought that was amazing. Didn't know you could do that. I mean, my ex told me, but I had no idea how easy it was. And every time I go snork, I just do it all the time. It's second nature. So, gotta try this Lee's Crunch here. Such good chicken. So, we learned a few skills and practice them. Our final night in the pool. The pool had a depth of 12 feet. They teach you to, like to clear your ears. You grab your nose, you go like that. That just kind of clears your ears. And I remember going down to gradually went down lower and lower. I remember being down to the bottom of the pool at 12 feet, and I could kind of almost like feel the pressure, And my ears are kind of starting to hurt, and I thought, man, I don't think I can do this if my ears are hurting now. What's it going to be like, They weren't really hurting, but I could feel it, Oh, look at that skin, look at that beautiful piece of skin there. Wow. Look at that. So anyway, wow, that's good. So, came up. Now during the course of doing this, these pool exercises, we'd go back to the dive shop, take all the rental equipment back. We'd have to do a quiz and that sort of thing. And after our final instruction in the pool, we had to do a written exam, which John and I both passed quite easily. I felt sorry for one young man. He failed, and his girlfriend was there with him. And he said, well, I studied for it when I was drunk. I guess I sure will when I was drunk. Which I think was just an excuse to the poor guy just didn't pass, right? So I felt sorry for him. But he had the opportunity to write it again. But anyways, there was a lady taking the course that John and I were in, who was also in my ex's course months earlier. And she never proceeded to, beyond the swimming pool. She never did do her open water. She had no confidence at all. She kept trying and trying. She would show up at the pool all the time and always be there, but she just wasn't ready. And I think the instructor finally gave up on her. But clearly she just never would have made a scuba diver because she just wasn't comfortable in the pool as it was. So I often wonder whatever happened to her. I guess she must have just sort of given up at some point. But so anyways, we had both graduated. Lots of high fives going around. We were getting ready for our first open water. I was so excited. It was going to be on Halloween. It was a short dive. Get down there in the morning. Ed's there with his pickup truck and all the equipment. And we'd stopped by the dive shop and picked up everything we needed. We all went out there. Nobody got dressed up, but somebody had a few, like a rubber spider hanging off their tank or something like that. I can't remember. It was just, even though it was Halloween, you couldn't really dress up too much, right? So, but anyway, it was a cold, crisp day. Clear. Another thing about diving in the winter months, like October to, March or whatever, which here in Canada is kind of wintry. The water's actually clear. In the summer, there's more algae, more bloom, more boating activity, and things get stirred up. It's just not as clear. So we are quite fortunate to be doing the dive Ed said we're going to swim out there and then just grab hold of the rope and slowly go down. Now, some of the more experienced divers who were assisting, like there was another instructor, but Ken was the lead guy. Ed, sorry. I keep calling him Ken. Ed. He was the lead guy. He went out there and I think I may have started off calling him Ken because he had the same last name as a friend of mine named Ken from years ago. But his name was Ed, so I'll clarify that now. His name is Ed. So Ed, the dive shop owner, he was with us on the surface and he sent us all down one by one. So first of all, we had to swim out there. Now when you got all this dive gear on, it's very heavy. You kind of walk around like this. It's really heavy, you know. And to get into the water, you have to walk backwards because you got your fins on. You can put your fins on the water, but I put them on shore. You just walk backwards into the water. Once you get in the water, there's no weight at all, like none. Now the first thing you know is this is very cold. But it heats up. How wetsuit works is there's a thin layer between your skin and the suit, and the water gets in there, creates like a thermal barrier, like an insulation, and your body heats that water, and you stay warm. And one thing I learned, and every diver does this if you're wearing a wetsuit, is if you pee in it, if you have to pee when you're underwater, you just pee, and this warmth just comes over you. It just feels wonderful. Oh my gosh, for about 30 or 45 seconds, you just enjoy this total warmth. Eventually, it all gets filtered out. Now, a dry suit's a different story. Ed always wore a dry suit, so your clothes don't get wet or nothing, but it's a whole different ball of wax. So anyways, we swim out to this rope, we're all gathered there, and he sends us down one by one, just gradually. I do let the air out of your BCD, and so just grab onto the rope and just sort of lower yourself down, just even just one hand, just start going down, get down there. He said, take your time. So, my ex had come along this dive too. She wanted to be on this dive. So everybody went down. I was the last one to go down. I said, okay, it's your turn. So I lower myself down, get all the way down there, get down and look around. Everybody's kneeling on the ocean floor. So kind of like in a circle. So Ed comes along, goes up all the students and points, look at me, points to your mask. In other words, gotta take your mask off. Put it back on and clear it. Now in the swimming pool, that was one thing. In the ocean, it's, when you're not used to it, it's really kind of an uncomfortable situation. I took mine off, cleared it, put it back on, and somehow I knocked my regulator in my mouth. So I started fumbling for it, and I sort of panicked a little bit, and I just came over, grabbed my regulator, and stuffed it in my mouth. But just for a second, I could see the look on my ex's face. I could see her eyes; they were like saucers. Like she thought, "Oh my God, that's my husband. He's gonna die." And I know I remember I kind of started panicking, and John would always make fun of me, for months later. He'd go, "Remember that time you were down there like this, Anyway, we got that under control real quick. Ed was an ex-dive instructor. He knew how to handle the situation. So that's fine. Did all that. Everything went well. We started swimming along. Ed goes over this reef and he's sort of going like this, and all of a sudden this little octopus comes out. It was so cool. I'd never seen an octopus in the wild before. It was like totally cool. Really, really something to see. Made my day. So everything, everything went well. It was really good. So that was our first dive. So we would have 2 more dives. There had to be, there's 4 more. There'd be 4 dives. But the last 2 would be the same day. So a couple days later, went out for a second dive to a different beach. Another shore dive. Basically, kind of a carbon copy of the last dive. The first one. Only went down to a maximum of about 40 feet, thereabouts. I said the next 2 dives would be going deeper. Love this gravy. So I thought, cool. So anyways, we get back. After each dive, you have to go back to the shop, wash all the gear off, put everything away. Just kind of have to do your own part, right? So I realized I knew what my ex meant when you want to get on equipment. Because, a lot of times you go to grab for something, the Velcro that's holding it in its place is not holding it very well, or something like that. It's just kind of all this, the suits, they take a beating, right? The equipment takes a beating. The BCs, everything take a beating. So, we do our second dive, second open water at a different beach. Same thing. Ed would always have us remove our mask, put it back on. I remember it was on this dive, just as we were starting, my ex got in the water. She said, I want you to try my regulator. She took it out of her mouth, and she said, just put your head underwater and just try this regulator. And I did, and it was so amazing. I knew it just talking about it. I could totally breathe so easy. I thought, I have to get my own. If I get anything, it has to be my own regulator. Because with these regulators, like I said, it was like sucking through a straw. You just, like that. It was really, and of course, the more you exert yourself by swimming, the harder you have to breathe. So we go on our 3rd dive. So the second dive went well. Our 3rd dive was a few days later again at a different beach. And we would do our last 2 dives at the same beach on the same day. So going on our 3rd dive. And this is where we went down to 60 feet. Got down there, and there's just a few of us. And we're swimming along, and then we're down maybe about 45 feet. Then Ed wants everyone to follow me, goes like that. And we'd go down, and I could feel the change in temperature, and also it got darker too, right? Going down sort of into this little crevice type thing or something. It just seemed kind of weird, so we're down there like that, and we're sort of perched on this little rock, this little ledge. And then Ed says, okay, look at me, focused, wants to take our mask off. Oh God, I was so tired of this. Take my mask off. And of course, I can't see anything because we're down quite a bit further. It's not pitch black, but it's definitely do what needs to be done and you'll be fine. So that was good. So that dive was pretty much uneventful. Our last final dive to get certified was the same place, like I said, and for some reason Ed was just taking out me and John. It was just the three of us. And I think the reason was the other instructors stayed, well, other instructor stayed with some of the other students, but Ed was going to kind of test and evaluate two at a time, which is what he did. So me and John went down there with him, and we're swimming around. That's pretty much like the dive before. But we're down there about 45 feet, and we're just getting ready to do some more skills. And Ed's kind of looking at me, and in the background I see John kind of floating up like this. And Ed turns around and sees him, so he looks at me, he goes, stay there. And he goes after John. I'm not sure what happened to John. He gave me a hard time about doing this, so I always gave him a hard time about floating away. He told me that his PC didn't work properly. I think he just inflated too much and started going up too quickly. Now the thing about going up too quickly, you can get decompression sickness, also known as the bends. You can get very sick. It shows itself in many forms. It may show itself a day or two later or whatever. You could even die from it. But anyway, Ed went after him. So I'm down there, kneeling on the ocean bottom, all by myself. Like I said, breathing through one of those regulators, like like that. And I'm looking around, and I forgot to mention, like, on our very first dive, most of the wildlife we saw were wolf eels, which are very unattractive eel. They got a face like a keyhole, kind of weird. Saw some seals, like the big doughy eyes, they swim by and they look at you like that. Saw a lot of nudibranchs and sea urchins and sea cucumbers and whatever, a lot of starfish. So I remember I was down there and I could see, some cod and different fish swimming by. And, I'm all by myself. And it was just really kind of weird, And I do have to say that diving around here in this area, everything is kind of the same. It's all kind of the same color, kind of like browns or, not real colorful. I went snorkeling for the first time in the Caribbean in the Bahamas in 2005, and in about 6 or 8 feet of water. It was just teeming with colorful fish and coral and stuff like that. And because where I was snorkeling was all very sandy, it reflected a lot of light, so it was brighter too. Where we were swimming, where we were scuba diving around here, the bottom is covered in kelp and rock and seaweed and whatever. So it wasn't real colorful. But that was the extent of the sea life that we saw. So I'm down there by myself. And I was just thinking, what if an orca swam by? Or even a great big sea lion. I remember one time a big sea lion jumped off this rock and was trying to attack our boat. So we just got out of there. And that was, a couple of years earlier. And I thought, wow, what if that happens, But of course, it was such an uncomfortable feeling because I'm down there by myself in 45 or 50 feet of water. And, if something went wrong, could I deal with it? But next thing I know, I look up and I see these two figures coming down. And it's Ed and John. He went and got John and pulled him back down. So, anyways, that was pretty much that. The hardest thing was about to come. So, once again, when the dive was nearing the end, there there was a buoy and a rope, and we just slowly went up the rope, and we would stop at intervals for about a minute and then proceed. Because you don't want to go up too fast. Especially when you're a novice, you don't know what you're doing. So we did that. Get to the top. And Ned says, okay guys, take off I want you to inflate your BCD. I want you to take it off and then put it back on. And so we were allowed to lift our masks up, and he said you could use your snorkel if you want, in case you get water in your mouth, but because you do have a snorkel. So when you're swimming on the surface, you can swim out there, and when you get to your dive site, you can drop down, right? So anyways, he said, you want to take off your BC, so started taking off my BC, and it was like really difficult, because then I had my weight belt on. I had to paddle my legs to keep myself up, and then I had to put it back on. And it wasn't going on as easy as I thought. It was kind of getting tangled up, and of course I'm exerting myself, getting kind of tired, and I'm thinking, man. So he said, okay. He made a comment like Ed said, you didn't eat your Wheaties this morning, did you? Just being funny. I said, okay, he said, just give yourself a minute, breathe, and then just focus. Make sure it's not tangled up. Just focus and just do it. So, I gave myself a minute, took a deep breath, looked at it, and I just put it on. I just struggled to put it back on, fastened up. That was good. And I said, you passed. You're now certified for 60 feet. Fantastic. Because the last 2 dives we got down to 60 feet, and it was really good. And so I knew what that was like. Like I said, the hardest test was taking that BCD off and putting it back on at the surface. But I did it. So it was great. Went back to shore. Now when you're in the water, it's nice and warm in there really, even though it's the ocean. And the ocean temperature between January and July doesn't change. Well, the surface temperature might change a little bit, but not the actual ocean. Really doesn't change. But when you come out, then it's cold, so we had the van to sit in and warm up. We had hot chocolate and we brought out lunch. But he didn't want us eating too much, because he didn't want to be belching or throwing up in your regulator or nothing. So when we were all finished, I couldn't believe what a feeling that was. It was fantastic. I was a certified scuba diver. I felt great. My ex was so happy. John was happy. John was real happy. He's very proud of himself. So right away, within the first week, we went diving again. Then we did another one. But John kind of decided that he wasn't going to pursue it. He said it was a lot of fun, but the second child was on the way. He couldn't afford it. His wife, at that time, they're divorced now. She was not comfortable in the water, so she never would have taken up scuba diving. She didn't like swimming that much. Wasn't much of a water person. And she would always say to me, Mark, I'm worried about him. What if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong? What if he dies down there or something? And that's a legitimate concern. I mean, could happen. But I think she was also a little bit jealous and insecure, because I remember one time she came along to this little event we had. It wasn't to dive, but it was just to get together. And of course, John knew everybody there, and he's talking, joking around. She didn't know anybody, And I think she felt kind of somebody on the sidelines. I'm probably a bit insecure. But I think if John had really been interested, he would have pursued it, but I don't think he really wanted to. He enjoyed the dives we did, he enjoyed taking the course, it was fun. But like he said, it wasn't really something he wanted to pursue. So, my ex and I went on to dive together. I eventually bought, the first thing I bought was my own dive suit, my own wetsuit. I bought that off another guy there named John, who was also a tall guy. He's about 6'2" or 6'3". My buddy John is 6'5", but anyway, he had a wetsuit, and it fit me perfectly, except because he was taller. I had to roll the pant legs up. Other than that, it fit great. So it came with some brand new gloves he hardly ever wore, boots. Next thing I know, I bought a used dive belt. Eventually, after months and months, I got my own BC. My ex and we bought our BCs together. She bought one, I bought one. We just kind of splurged, spent some money. We just got a BCD, and I got my own regulator. We both had all our own equipment, tanks, everything. So it was great. So we were going on a lot of dives. And when you do a shore dive, you can just walk in the water. But if you're on a pier or something, a dock, when you jump in, you open your legs like that. But you put one leg up in front of the other, and you hold on to your mask and regulator, and you jump in because you want them to go falling off and hit the water. And by sticking your legs like that, kind of slows you down a bit. I never did do a dive like that, even though we did them in the swimming pool, but never actually did one in open water. The swimming pool was a lot different. It was very controlled and everything, But in open water, we also, I remember doing my first boat dive. Now a boat dive is a lot different when you enter the water. I remember when we first did a boat dive, my wife had already done a couple. And we're gonna go out on some old fishing boat that sunk years earlier. A lot of divers had to go there and swim around it. Now there was a couple of wrecks in our area, but they were both at 130 and 140 feet. We were not certified beyond 60. And also, when you're going to wreck dive, you have to know what you're doing as well. They sunk this old warship, and they cut bigger holes in it with a torch so that you could have easy access to go in and out. But still at 130 feet, 140 feet, whatever, you still have to have your skills, know what you're doing. So our first boat dive, this boat had sunk in about 40 or 50 feet of water years and years earlier. And so a friend of ours had a big boat that he used for diving as well. All the seats were taken out and everything. It was just one seat for the skipper. And there's a few of us went out there. There's about 6 of us. And we went out. And you always have like a dive flag. They have on a buoy and just floats there. And of course the skipper stayed with the boat anyway. So anyway, got our equipment on. And what you do is you sit on the edge of the boat. You inflate your BCD a little bit. Of course, make sure your tank is turned on. Once you're satisfied with everything, just grab your snorkel and your regulator and your mask, and you fall back like that. You're off the boat. And I never had a chance to practice that before. That was not something you ever did in the pool or anywhere else. And so it was the first for me. And I was a bit concerned about that. You know, there's nothing to it. Next thing you just fall back in the water, you just come right around, you bob up in within a second, right? Nothing to it. So we went down and we went down, saw this old boat that had been there, and it was still fairly intact. I guess it was probably about a 45-footer, I guess, old trawler. Couldn't go inside it or nothing like that, but it was funny because so many little fish live in there and stuff, right? You know, just swim around. It was really cool. So we got to see that. So anyways, the Easter egg thing came up again. Oh, I forgot to say, that Christmas I got certified in on Halloween in October. We've done a few times. I forgot to mention that. And by then the weather's getting kind of cold, right? So that Christmas, my ex and I would always go down to Victoria for Christmas shopping. We'd be doing that. It was kind of like a tradition with us. It was the only time we got away from the kids together on our own for 2 nights. We'd stay at a cheap hotel, eat in nice restaurants, go to a movie. And my mom would look after the kids. I always look forward to that. This time we went down there, we were going to plan a dive. So we got down there. The next morning, I had a nice breakfast. Took all our equipment down to this beach where there's a big pier there. Got in the water. Nice and gradual, start going down there. Just kind of swim around. My ex had a great sense of humor. I'll never forget. At one point she goes, you know, look at me. She takes this big sea cucumber, it's about this long, big sea cucumber, puts it between her legs and pretends it's a dick, right? Just cracked me up. I'll never forget that. So anyway, we're swimming along. I look down, and we're just kind of poking around, and I see something, I go down, I grab this yellow thing. That's the handle of a knife. Beautiful knife. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, look at that thing. Obviously, it was lost probably by a diver or a fisherman or something. I assume it was probably by a diver. So, I grabbed it, showed it to my ex, and look at this, pointing like that. So we finished our dive. Somewhat uneventful. Got to shore. Took all that gear back to the hotel. Left the tanks in the van. Just took a warm cloth, wiped all the salt off. Hung all our equipment up in the bathroom of the hotel. It's a good dive. So, when we got back to, when our trip was over, got back to Nanaimo. I asked Ed, because he knew everybody in the dive club in Victoria, could you ask if somebody had lost a knife out there? And he said, knife? He said, what color is it? And I said, it was yellow. He said, oh, that's so-and-so lost that from the Nanaimo Dive Club about 2 weeks ago. And so I showed it to him. He goes, yeah, totally, that's what it is. That was it. So the guy was totally happy to get back. He just said, wow, he said, I never thought I'd see it again. Because he said, I could look for it. But I didn't realize it. He said, we did 2 dives that day. I didn't realize it was missing until I started putting all my gear away. And the sheath where the knife goes was empty. I said I had no idea where I lost it. So here I thought it was somebody from Victoria that lost it, but it was just one of the people from the local dive club in Nanaimo that lost it. So they got it back. So that was cool. So we continued to do a lot of dives. We did our first night dive. Now, night dive. We had this great big huge flashlight, great big plastic thing, like red with like a see-through plastic, you know, like clear plastic, and great big thing. Kind of heavy. Once you hit the water, you don't feel the weight, but quite bright. And then this other guy, he said to me, well, you can borrow this light. It was a lot smaller. And the lights they have nowadays are way smaller and way more intense, better batteries, better bulbs, everything, right? But this was like a great big cumbersome thing. So we did a night dive off a boat, just offshore and down here. A place called Jessie Island. We're just surrounded by smaller islands here. Even though I live on an island already, we're surrounded by small ones. Thousands of them. So, the main difference in them night diving, like during the day when you get down, you look up, you can see clear generally, you know, depending on how deep you are, you can see there's light. But with a night dive, you look up, it's nothing. And it's easy to become disoriented. There's a name for it, I can't remember what the name is. Pilots get the same thing, but you can't tell if you're upside down or forward, or if you're tilting this way or listing that way. You can't tell. You get very mixed up if you're in fog or whatever. A lot of pilots, when they go through fog, or if it's at nighttime without instruments, they get like that, right? Sometimes. And that could happen too. Because it's easy to become disoriented because it's so dark. And of course you turn your flashlights on, but all you see is, I mean, unless you're actually on the bottom or along a reef or something, you just see all these little, you know, specks and everything in the water, right? So we get down there. Can't see it aside from phosphorescence and all that. Never really saw anything at night. I didn't see during the day. I didn't really see what the attraction was. But we did a couple of night dives, mainly to be sociable. A lot of times, they would say, what's no point in taking the boat out and all this gas unless we have about 6 people and blah, blah, blah. So we'd say, okay, we'll do it. So we go up there. But anyways, my ex and I continued to dive for a few years. One thing we both noticed was the dive all looked the same. So the one thing we noticed was the dive started to look the same after a while. They're all kind of the same. You saw the same stuff all the time, no matter where you went. There's a few reefs that were interesting. There's one place we're diving on at Yellow Point. There's this wall you can go down, you know, and it's a long ways below you, but you only go down so far, right? Because we're only certified for 60 feet, and so everything was just kind of the same after a while. It felt kind of limited. So we continued to dive for a number of years with friends and that sort of thing, and very active in the dive club. Like, you know, we attended all the parties. I remember going to this one Christmas party and getting, so drunk. Oh, man, I don't know what happened, but I don't normally drink like that, but I was having so much fun. And I remember the next day, it started snowing a bit that night, and we were walking home because we were within about 6 or 8 block distance from our house. And I remember walking and just really good. So glad I wasn't driving. The next day, now my ex had to work the next day, but she worked at the co-op, and the next day the co-op was having their kids' Christmas party, meet Santa and said, I got a phone call that, your mom phoned, and the Christmas party's been canceled because of the snow. Now, it had snowed a bit, but wasn't that much. It wasn't stopping anything. The Christmas party was not canceled, but there's no way I could take him. I remember because she phoned at one point and said, how are you feeling? Because, I wasn't feeling good. And I said, I can't get off the couch. So one of the guys who was at the party, he came over just to see how I was doing or whatever, and to enjoy the party last night, blah, blah. He was feeling okay, but I just said, oh man, I'm so sick. And that was the last time I ever was hungover. I made a point that I would never drink that much and be hungover again. And like I said, that was 30 years ago, and I've never done it since, because having to lie to my kids and cheat them out of a Christmas party because I was too hungover down, get off the couch. It really bugged me. It still kind of bugs me. I never did tell them the truth. But anyways, I never drink like that anymore. That was the last time I remember being drunk. I know there's been times I've been feeling good, I get a little bit more chatty after the second or third beer, but the last time I had 4 beer was at Susan's daughter-in-law's party, her 40th party, for her 40th birthday. And I had 4 beer over, between 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock, so I just hardly ever drink any more than 2. That was the last time I had more than 2 beer. But I just don't drink like that anymore. It's just so not worth being sick. Wow. But we continued to dive for a while. We bought a cabin, and we bought some property in 1996 right on the water on an island called Ruxton Island. Built a cabin there in 1997. And we anchored a buoy for our boat about 50, 60 feet offshore. I can't remember. But anyways, I took a 5-gallon pail, drilled holes in it, stuck rebar through it like this. So it's like pieces of rebar go through it like that, Attached a piece of chain about 3 feet to a good, thick, galvanized chain about 3/8 inch. Filled it full of cement. So it weighed about 75 pounds at least. Maybe even close to 100, but it was heavy. And that was our anchor. Then I attached a large, either rope or chain, I can't remember, to the other chain that was already there, coming out of the buoy, out of the anchor, And our buoy was a tire, inflated tire, that spray painted the hubcap, either yellow or orange, I can't remember. We attached that, got the boat, and when we were happy with where we were located, just offshore, we could see our cabin. We thought this is a good place to tie our boat. We could almost see the bottom, We pushed the buoy over, it went whew, and that was it. It was in the water. And that's what we tied our boat up to from then on. So anyways, about a couple weeks later, the last couple dives we ever did was over there. And this was about 1997. No, that's not true. We dove after that. But anyways, in 1997, my ex and I went over on our boat, took our dive gear with us. The kids were in school. Brianna was in kindergarten, so we just had the morning, and we thought let's take advantage of this and went over there. Took our scuba gear, and we wanted to dive down and have a look at the anchor that we set. So we did that, and it was perfect. It had kind of fallen on sides, so the rebar that was sticking out was sticking right into the ocean bottom, and that thing wasn't going anywhere. It dug right in. It wasn't going anywhere. It was solid. So that's cool. So we get up and taking our dive gear off and going to get our clothes on, going back. And my ex is looking at me and said, "Did you see my watch?" I said, "No." watch. It was not made to be underwater. But anyways, she couldn't find him. We looked all through the boat. Then she thought, well, maybe I left it in the van. Got the van, couldn't find him. And she said, I'm pretty sure I was wearing it. She said, I know I was wearing it because at one point I checked the time. I know I was wearing it. Couldn't find it. So anyway, she was all worried about it. So the next week, on a Saturday or Sunday, packed up the kids and the dog, went out to the cabin. I just, I'm going to do a dive. I'm going to go down there and see if I can find him. No, you should never dive by yourself. You should always have a buddy. But at this point, she was very experienced, very competent. She wasn't going deep. And she said, as soon as if I find it, I'll come right up and tell you. Just, oops. If I find it, I'll come right back up and tell you. That way you won't be worried. Okay, so the kids are kind of off playing. I'm sitting there. So she goes into the water, goes up where the buoy is, and the dog is sitting there watching her. And he tried swimming afterwards. He called him back, Maggie, get back. So went back on shore and he sat there watching her. Now, the dog, even though it was a family dog, he really bonded with my ex because when we first got him, he was a puppy. And she gave him one of her t-shirts to sleep with, so he kind of bonded with her. And he sat there, and she went down in the water, and he starts getting all anxious. And he sat there, and he stared at that spot, and stared at it, and stared at it. About 10 minutes later, she comes up, and that dog was so excited, it started running him down the beach. He just sprung into life. He was just running around up there, because his mama had come back, right? And she comes in and goes, I got it. She found a watch. I guess it just broke the hasp or something. Of course, it was ruined. It didn't work after that. But we're down in the water for a week. It was not, like I said, waterproof or nothing. But she said she saw it almost right away. She couldn't believe it. Just sitting there. So she said, I'm going back down. I got some air. I'm just going to poke around. And she went down there for a while and came back up, and that was it. That was a nice, yeah, we did do a few dives at 98. That was the last time we dove. We just lost interest. We had the cabin. We kind of moved on to other things, you know. We'd done so many dives. I did a total of 63 dives. My ex did, I think, about 80-some. And that's not a lot, really. Some people do hundreds and thousands of dives, you know. And the dive master, when he was teaching us, I think he had something like 1,500 dives under his belt at that point. And to this day, he's probably got like 10,000. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. The main thing is, it was something that my ex and I did together for so many years. We loved it. It was wonderful. A lot of fun. I would love to have gone diving somewhere tropical, like in the Bahamas or someplace, or like Australia or something, where it's, you know, like when I was in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, I saw these colorful fish, like in Mexico, you know, all those colorful fish and those sea turtles. I made pictures of those. I put them on a video, you know, stuff like that, you know. But then you got to rent gear, lug it down there. Like I said, we're kind of done with renting gear, you know, that sort of thing. But it was fun. And back in those days, we couldn't afford to travel. You know, we were still raising 3 kids, you know, paying a mortgage on our house, and we had the cabin and the boat, and, you know, bills. But it was so much fun. Just so much fun. I'll never forget it. There's a few times I wish John had pursued it more, because he was a lot of fun to always have him come along on a dive. A lot of fun, but I can understand his reasoning too, you know. I mean, I did a skydiving jump once and I never pursued it. You know, I just wasn't the right time for me, but you know, at least I tried it. But anyways, my friends, that's my scuba diving story. I think it's always good to try things, you know, no matter what. As long as you don't hurt yourself or kill yourself or whatever, or suffer financial ruin. But anyways, hadn't had Lee's chicken in a while. So, I'd like you to check out my playlist. A lot of people say, what happened to this video, what happened to that video, or you should make a video about this. Well, I did make a video, so if you check out my playlist, you might find something that you like there. If not, just ask me in the comment section about a certain video you're interested in finding, or if you have suggestions for me. I love it when people give me ideas. I love that. You know, requests. Also, shout-outs. Do you want a shout-out, especially a birthday or anniversary? Something with a date, please give me 3 to 4 weeks notice, okay? Otherwise, if it's just a regular shout-out, I can do it anytime. I do my best to get those shout-outs on or near your anniversary, your birthday, or whatever. I've actually even rearranged some of my videos to accommodate, because I figure if you people support me, the least I can do is support you. So I do what I can, but it's not always, you know, sometimes it's kind of counterproductive to do it that way, you know, to rearrange videos. So anyways, you look after yourselves, look after each other, stay amazing out there in the land of awesome, and I thank you for tuning in. So we'll see you next time, okay? Okay. Bye now.